Introduction. The night that changed everything. There are moments in life that shift everything you thought you knew. They're the kind of moments where the ground beneath your feet shakes, and the air around you seems to thicken. For me, that moment came one late Friday night when my world turned upside down in a matter of seconds. It started with a party, just a casual get-together at my friend Kyle's place. Nothing out of the ordinary. We were all there, my friends, my girlfriend, and a few familiar faces from around the neighborhood. It was supposed to be a fun, laid-back evening. I had been dating Emily for just over a year at that point. She was smart, beautiful, and had this infectious energy that made you feel alive when you were around her. From the outside, we looked like the perfect couple, but like any relationship, there were cracks, ones I hadn't fully acknowledged yet. I wasn't blind to her past. Not completely. Emily had been upfront about her ex-boyfriend, Daniel. She'd mentioned him early on in our relationship, telling me they had dated for a while before things fell apart. I didn't pry too much at the time, thinking everyone has history, right? I had no reason to doubt her when she said it was over. And maybe I should have seen the red flags sooner. But I didn't. Not until that night. Part 1. The revelation. The evening started like any other gathering, with laughter, music, and a few too many drinks flowing. Emily was more reserved than usual, sticking close to me, but also taking every chance to refill her glass. I didn't think much of it at first. We all have our moments. But as the night wore on, she started to drift. She ended up in a conversation with Kyle, my closest friend since high school. While I was busy in another corner talking to some other friends, I didn't notice when she wandered over to Kyle or how their conversation started. But I remember the moment Kyle pulled me aside after. His face drained of color. His eyes darted around like he wasn't sure how to say what was on his mind. "What's going on?" I asked, half laughing, thinking he was overreacting to some drunken conversation. But Kyle wasn't laughing. That's when he told me. He explained how, in her drunken state, Emily had let something slip, something she had clearly been keeping from me. She told him she was pregnant. But that wasn't the worst part. No, the worst part was that the baby wasn't mine. It was Daniel's, her ex. I didn't hear anything else after that. It was like someone had dropped a bomb in the middle of the party. But only I could hear the explosion, the sounds around me, the music, the chatter, the clinking of bottles. All became a distant hum. All I could focus on were those words, pregnant by her ex. And worse still, she expected me to step up and raise the child as if it were mine. Part 2. The weight of betrayal that night was a blur after Kyle dropped the bombshell on me. I left the party without a word, just needing to get away from everything and everyone. I didn't want to confront Emily. Not then. I didn't trust myself to handle it calmly. And honestly, I didn't know if I was ready to hear what she had to say. I needed time to think, to process. But how do you process something like that? How do you reconcile the person you thought you knew with the reality of who they really are? In those quiet, dark hours alone in my apartment, I played the last year of my life over and over in my head. Had there been signs? Little hints that I had missed? I tried to remember every conversation, every look, every moment that might have hinted at the truth. But nothing stood out. Emily had hidden it well, better than I could have ever imagined. It wasn't just that she had kept the pregnancy a secret. It was the fact that she had been willing to lie to me, to drag me into a future that wasn't mine. She had decided, without ever consulting me, that I would raise another man's child. And for what? Convenience? Fear? Or maybe she genuinely believed I would be okay with it. The thought sickened me. I had always prided myself on being a good, decent person. I believe in love, in loyalty, in standing by the people you care about. But this wasn't loyalty. This was betrayal. Part 3. Facing the truth, I avoided Emily for the next few days. She texted me, called me, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. I didn't know what I would say to her, how I would even begin to have that conversation. Part of me wanted to confront her, to demand answers. But another part of me didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to hear her excuses or explanations. Because deep down, I already knew the truth. She had lied to me, and no amount of explanation was going to change that. But I couldn't avoid her forever. Eventually, I had to face her. I had to look her in the eyes and ask the questions that had been gnawing at me since that night. So, after a few days of silence, I texted her and told her we needed to talk. She came over to my apartment, looking nervous but trying to act like everything was fine. I could see it in her eyes. Though, she knew. She knew I had found out. The air between us was thick with unspoken tension, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I finally broke the silence. The conversation wasn't long. I didn't need it to be. I asked her, point blank, if what Kyle had told me was true, and after a few moments of hesitation, she nodded. She admitted that she was pregnant and that Daniel was the father. She didn't deny it, didn't try to sugarcoat it. She just stood there, as if she had expected me to take the news with a shrug and a smile. I couldn't believe the audacity. She actually seemed surprised when I told her I couldn't do it, that I couldn't raise another man's child, that I couldn't be part of this lie she had created. She had already made up her mind, already decided how our lives would play out without ever considering how I might feel. Part 4. The aftermath after that conversation. Things were never the same between us. How could they be? The trust, the foundation of our relationship, had been shattered. I couldn't look at Emily without feeling the sting of betrayal. I couldn't picture our future together anymore, not with the weight of her deception hanging over us. She begged me to reconsider. She apologized, cried, told me she had been scared and confused. But none of that mattered to me anymore. The damage was done. It wasn't just about the pregnancy. It was about the fact that she had kept it from me, that she had tried to manipulate me into a life I didn't choose. I ended things with Emily not long after. It wasn't easy, and there were times when I questioned if I had made the right decision. But deep down, I knew I couldn't stay with someone who had betrayed me so deeply. I couldn't build a life with her when I would always wonder what other secrets she might be hiding. Part 5. Moving on in the weeks and months that followed. I tried to rebuild my life. It wasn't easy. I had spent over a year with Emily, and it was hard to imagine a future without her. But I knew I deserved better. I deserved honesty, loyalty, and a relationship built on trust, something Emily had proven she couldn't give me. I threw myself into work, into hobbies, into anything that would keep my mind off what had happened. Slowly, I began to heal. The pain of her betrayal didn't disappear overnight, but it became easier to live with. I began to see it not as a reflection of my worth, but as a reflection of who Emily was. A person who had made mistakes, but who ultimately wasn't right for me. I don't know what happened to Emily after we broke up. I heard through mutual friends that she and Daniel had some kind of reconciliation, though I never cared enough to find out the details. It didn't matter anymore. My life, my future, was no longer tied to her. Conclusion: learning to let go. Looking back now, I realized that in some strange way, Emily did me a favor. She showed me who she really was, and in doing so, she saved me from a life of lies and deception. It wasn't easy to walk away, but it was the right thing to do. I've learned that sometimes the hardest thing is to let go of the people you love when they've hurt you. But in letting go, you make room for something better, something real. I'm not sure what the future holds for me, but I know one thing: I won't settle for anything less than honesty. I won't let anyone else decide the course of my life without my consent. And most of all, I won't allow myself to be pulled into someone else's lies ever again. In the end, that's what matters most: the ability to stand up for yourself, even when it hurts. And though it took me a while to get here, I'm finally at peace with that.